Okay, we are now live. Good evening and welcome to Equine Voices. My name is Ronnie and I'm your host for this evening. And I'm so excited to introduce a lovely lady, Andrea Wady, who's going to be talking to you about the work that she does. And she's also got a book out called Crossing Bridges. So rather than me sit here and explain all about it, I'm going to bring her in shortly and she can introduce herself and just talk a little bit about her experience with horses. She has many skills. She does liberty, connection, and mindset work. And so, without further ado, I shall bring Andrea in.
Hi there.
Hi, Andrea. Welcome. Would you like to just explain who you are, firstly, and what sort of work you do with horses?
Well, thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here. So I'm an equine behaviorist. However, my main focus is that I help people understand their horses better, mostly at liberty, but it can be not at liberty. It doesn't matter, but it's about the relationship. It's about friendship. It's about connecting with your horse through understanding them, seeing the world through their eyes instead of what they can do for us and how we train them. So it's relationship first. So I'm a liberty trainer, but I'm also kind of a relationship coach to horses and humans. That's what I would say. And as a behaviorist, I see a lot of horses in a lot of different situations with different issues. And usually the issue is us. So it's teaching people to think a bit more like a horse and being able to understand the world through their eyes and having just a little bit more compassion instead of seeing behaviors as bad behaviors, seeing it as an animal trying to communicate what's going on. And becoming a bit of a detective to work out what's going on and bringing a gentle, quiet resolve where the horse can step down from having to communicate quite so strongly. So that's what I do. I also am a writer. I've just had my book published, which is exciting, Crossing Bridges, which is my account of the documentary I made with Elsa Sinclair when we walked from coast to coast across Costa Rica with 2 rescue horses, connecting with them using love and understanding and communication instead of tools, and doing as much at liberty as we could safely, with there being roads and impenetrable rainforest. And we made a documentary about that, a film called Taming Wild Pura Vida. And I have just had the book released. So yeah, it's a great time right now. It's super exciting.
Sounds really, really exciting. Can you explain? So the horses that you did the Costa Rica walk with, the trek, how did they come into your? How did you come across them? Were they horses that you found, or?
Yeah, no, I'd lived in Costa Rica for a long time. In total, I came back to England at the beginning of COVID, but we'd been there for 18 years. We did the film about 5 years ago now, I think. So I knew places where there were horses that needed to get out, one of them being the market, what they call the subasta, which is the animal market. I didn't ever want to go there, but we did go there, and that's where we found Apollo, who was Elsa's partner for the project. And Zeus was in one of the really challenging locations where they do a lot of tourist rides, very skinny, very broken. And that's where I found him. And we brought them back to our farm and turned them out, let them just be. We didn't interact with them hardly at all, apart for medical reasons, to do their teeth, do their feet, that sort of thing. Left them to it, let them get weight on them and just decompress. And then we started the trek.
So whose idea was that to? I mean, was it something that you'd thought about before, or was it just like I think this will be a great adventure and a knowledgeable one for humans and for horses?
I'd always wanted to do it. I'd had the idea for quite a while. And then Elsa Sinclair, who's amazing, she came to do a clinic with us in Costa Rica. And I told her about what I was planning. And she said, well, I want to come and let's film it. So I said, well, okay, let's do that. And it was literally that simple. You know, I'm a kind of girl where if a door opens and it seems good, I say yes. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I'd rather regret, you know, if I don't do it than, you know, not doing it, should I say. So yeah, I said yes. We put it, it took us about a year and a half to get it all together because obviously we had to get a lot of financing. It was a big operation to cross a country. It took us 16 days to go from coast to coast. Costa Rica is quite small, but it goes like that. You know, it was literally up and down and up and down. It was hard going. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but by far the best.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine it because I've never done it, but the little bit I saw a little video, I think a trailer.
Oh yeah.
What? I thought, wow, because there was mud, water, hills, flies.
And that bridge.
There was a lot of things there, and just doing that on your own without horses. So was it mainly done in hand? So you weren't riding, was you? Was that? Am I correct?
We would occasionally ride. We didn't know, especially with Apollo, we didn't know whether he would let us ride him. When we bid on him at the market, we got a message through to us after we'd won the bid and paid for it. We got a message through saying, don't ever get on him. He's really, really dangerous. So I didn't tell Elsa that because I thought, well, I really dislike labels on horses because the horse he was 10 minutes ago is not the horse he is now. And when they're with different people in different situations, you've got to allow them to be the horse that they are. And we label things far too much. So I snipped those labels off and he was wonderful. And when she did get on him, he was fine-ish, mostly fine. So we didn't ride very much at all. I blew my knee out at one point and climbed on. But the goal was to walk from coast to coast using as little touching of the rope as possible. So having a liberty mindset. We had to have the rope for safety because, you know, we had motorbikes passing us when we were going through the villages and things like that. And obviously, you know, in the first few days, we couldn't have been at liberty because they would have left. We didn't have the relationship. We didn't have enough in the emotional bank. But by the sort of end of the first week, we were getting pretty bonded and the rope was really not needed half as much. And our goal was to ride them bareback and bridleless at the end on the beach that we reached. So we started at one beach and ended at another on the other coast with the goal of riding with no equipment whatsoever. Yeah.
Brilliant. And did you achieve that?
You'll have to watch the film.
or read the book.
Yeah, we did. We did. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yes, we did.
Yeah. Oh, how lovely.
It was.
And the thing is there's a lot of trust there on both sides, isn't there? I mean, you know, horses are big animals, and if they wanted to take off, like you said, they could just go. So that's an amazing achievement. Like I said, even if it was just you without the horses, the fact that you've got two horses traveling along with you, that you've just got to know is an amazing achievement. Can you tell us, so if we go back a little bit, how did you get into horses?
My family were always horses. I mean, I started riding when I was about 18 months old. I was tiny, just up in front of grandma or mum. Mum rode with me when she was pregnant, I think. So, you know, horses were always a part of our lives. I rode typically English, brought up the English way, you know, kick the horse to go, pull the reins to stop, don't let them win, show them who's boss, don't show your fear, all of those things, which are still quite prevalent today. And I was a fairly decent rider. I was a good rider. But now when I look back, it was all my way. You know, the horses didn't get any choice in that. And I've been on a journey really for the last, the last 25 years just studying a different way of trying to understand the horse more and have them as a friend to really help in the partnership. Doesn't mean I don't ask them to do anything. People go, oh, well, then you just love on them in the field. No, that's not it at all. We crossed a whole country. We do ask, I ask a lot of my horses, but they're also allowed to say no. And that was what was different when I was young, that no was absolutely not an option. It was not an option. We would do whatever it took. Things I'm not proud of. Whatever it took to get that pony to jump the jump or stand still or do whatever, because that's the way we were taught.
Yeah, and well, it is the way you was taught, isn't it? You and people that know when you first starting to ride, or especially I was a late bloomer as far as horses concerned, and you when you learn about them, you read and you listen to people, and then you get to a point where you're thinking, this is not quite right as you get older, or something happens, and you start to look a bit wider. And you start to look a bit deeper into things and think, well, why do we do it that way? Just because we've always done it that way, it doesn't mean to say that it's right. And that can go across the board for lots of things in life. People are great on traditional, but that's tradition. Yeah, well, it doesn't mean it's right. They used to hang people. That was tradition, but thank God they don't do that anymore. No. Yeah. Oh, that was a bit deep, wasn't it? That little bit.
Oh, no, but it's true, well, I mean, most of the horse tradition comes from the military model. Well, we're not riding horses, thank God, into wars anymore.
No.
So, and I think, to be honest, Ronnie, is a lot of control that we exert over horses is based in fear.
Yes.
90% of aggression is fear-based on both sides, horses and humans. And I think that, this fear of losing control of the horses. And once I started experimenting with allowing them to say no, they weren't taking advantage. And I do go, okay, yes, you can say no. Let me find another way to approach this. And could this be a yes? Okay, it's a yes. Great. Then we get going. But, they don't suddenly go, well, now you're not controlling me. I'm just going to kick you, bite you, run you over. If you're having to control a horse from doing that, then the relationship is broken. Build trust and build relationship, and they have no reason to try and hurt you. Why would they want to? And it's never too late. It's never too late to change your relationship with your horse. They are one of the most forgiving species. And I can't tell you how quickly some relationships will turn around. Literally, I say to my students, everything can change in a heartbeat, and it really can. When we start to go, who do I need to be to connect with this horse? Who do I need to be? Usually calmer, maybe understanding the species more, maybe speeding up. Some people go too slow for their horses. It's usually the other way around. But who do I need to be? And when we start to do that, the horse goes, oh, you're listening to me. You're observing me. You're noticing me. And they love it. They love it.
Yeah, I understand what you mean about, as soon as you can change something very, very quickly, your mindset, your energy, or how you approach something. And sometimes it's just getting out of your head for that moment when you realize that you're busy doing something with your thoughts, and your horses are almost like, hello, are you there? And you go, oh yeah, okay. And then they pay they pay you the attention, or they give you the acknowledgement that you're looking for. That
or they're just so checked out that they've given up trying.
Yes, yeah. I mean, horses. There are a lot of horses that have jobs to do. They have a role to fulfill, and they're well aware of that. Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that. I know I had working horses for 12 years in Costa Rica, but they were so wide awake. Yes, it's not what you do with the horse, it's how you do it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. I think horses quite like having a job if it's a job they enjoy.
Yes.
You know, so they don't always enjoy it, but if they do enjoy it, they can be wide awake and super connected and love their work.
And it's about having a choice. Like you said, they can say no. Sometimes you might have to do something because it's for safety, or you have to do a certain
Absolutely.
thing. And
Get
it's
tos
like,
and
well,
got
actually,
tos.
yeah, I have to do this.
Sure.
But as if the majority of the time they get to say, I'm not quite comfortable with that, or I'm not ready for that yet. Are you listening to me? And then you see that, then they go, okay. And so for my work, a horse can relay that they are ready to do something. So they will say, yep, I'm ready, I would like this, and you can ask them the question. But it doesn't mean to say that when you go out to see your horse, that on a physical level that they'll just say, yeah, get on me, let's go. Sometimes they might, but they might still want you to have put in the work. So mentally they're saying yes, but physically they're saying, but you're not ready physically. You're saying yes, but you're not ready. And that's an interesting dynamics, because they go, well, I thought they said yes, they did, but you're not ready. And I say that to myself as well. So when I'm having a conversation with myself, I go, okay, I'm not there yet. And I find that fascinating, because it's not quite black and white. There's different degrees. Yeah, I find that fascinating. So when you're doing I'm interested in the liberty, because I used to play around with clicker, because to do some things with my horse, because I wasn't riding her, I wanted to still occupy her, so she wasn't just sort of in a field. I wanted to interact with her. So we used to just play around with clicker, and it was my own. It wasn't. I read a book, but it was more what we would learn together. So she understood if I did something that was yes, you've got it. That's what I'm asking. So it might not be the right way if you read a book, but it was our language. She understood that
Yeah.
by what
If it
we was
works, it
doing.
works.
Yeah, and that brought lots of interesting connections and fun, and you could see her trying to work things out.
Sure.
So I'm interested in the liberty. So explain a little bit more about the liberty.
So liberty is a great way to work with a horse. So obviously they have no equipment on them. Clicker training, you can create a liberty connection. Positive reinforcement, you don't really need to have a clicker. You can just use your voice. It's great for teaching behaviors. There's many different forms that get called liberty. A lot of natural horsemanship, you'll create a pattern online with the rope, and then you take the rope away and you still have the pattern, and that's liberty. That's not the type of liberty that I teach. I used to love it. I still love it. But that's kind of training without ropes. So the horse has learned a pattern. So mentally, they've learned, I can't leave because I've got the rope on me. And then the rope's taken away. And yes, they can leave. They absolutely can leave. But they also know that if they do leave, you're probably going to apply a little bit of pressure on them using the stick to come back. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all. I used to do it. It was fun. But one day, I had this horse called Archie, who was a phenomenal horse. I could run around in 400 acres of rainforest at liberty. It was the natural horsemanship, Pirelli style liberty. It was great. I loved it. We would run around the forest, jump over logs together. It's brilliant. And then I was like, oh my gosh, our relationship is so great. I don't need the ropes. I'm going to leave the stick behind. I don't think I need the stick. So out we went, running around. It was great. I was like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. I don't think I need the treat pouch. I'm going to leave that behind. It's just going to be me and him. And we went around the forest. It was brilliant. Next day I went out and he kind of left me a bit, but he came back and left me a bit. Day 3, he left me for dust. And I was like, oh. I went back and got my stick and my treat pouch, and he stuck to me like glue. And I was like, this isn't real to me. I need to know, how can I ask him to stay with me when I have nothing. So it wasn't that I didn't agree with the other stuff. I just wanted more. I wanted more. I'm like, how do I get him to feel like my dog does when I go out? And it was a long journey.
So
And the first thing I had to do was kick my ego down the street and ask and expect less and learn to understand his world a lot more. And it was a journey, and it's been amazing. So the type of liberty that I teach, I like to think of it like a foundation stone. Okay, it's like creating the ultimate friendship, the ultimate unbreakable partnership, where that horse trusts you completely and you trust him. And on that foundation, you can then go on and build the house that you want. You can use positive reinforcement, clicker training, classical dressage. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do. It's just building that relationship first, so that you have so much money in the bank with that horse that when you want to ask for something under saddle or whatever, you've got the funds in that friendship bank to pay for it.
Yeah.
And anytime things aren't working, you revert back to that friendship.
So it's a foundation.
Yeah, it's a foundation.
The foundation.
That's the way I like to look at it.
Yeah.
So when I'm at liberty with my horse, I'm not asking her to do lots of things for me. I'm watching the outside environment to see that she feels safe and can relax, because I've got it. I'm watching the outside environment. She doesn't have to. So she thinks, well, I want to stick with you because then I feel safe. I make the choices for her. Like can see her flies landed on her, so I'll itch her. When she walks, I want to match her feet and get in rhythm with her. I'll ask her to follow my hand. Can you come with me? Great. I'll walk at your speed. If you're going to follow me, then I'll match your speed, not expect you to keep up with me, you to stick to me, you to stop when I stop. Although the stopping when I stop is valuable, and I do use that. But it's about making yourself the most rock solid person that horse wants to be with you. Yeah.
So it's evolved from when you first start. But I think
I'll still pick up a rope and a training stick to say, okay, let's do a bit of sideways, let's do a bit of back, because having a horse that's responsive and can move off pressure is really important. When people go, oh, I'm going to train my horse using no pressure whatsoever, I wouldn't do that. Because there's going to be a time when the vet needs to put the halter on. There might be a time, like for some of my students, a lot of my students are in America, the mountain's on fire. That horse has got to get in that trailer or it's going to die. Pressure had to be used. So if a horse has never had that, that's very unfair to them. To expect them then to suddenly understand what a pull on the rope means. Hopefully you don't need to pull, but it's important for them to understand that you can teach it and not use it, but it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's different degrees.
Sure.
I find it, so when you learning something and you get excited, you read and you watch, and I mean I do. You just absorb it and you want to see more. And then as you practice something, or you try things out yourself. So when I said I do clicker, it wasn't that, it's not the rule book of clicker. It's just it was our communication, and it was a way that I could help interact with my horse, and for her to have something to do, for her mind to be active, even if she wasn't ridden. And then I would just use my mouth, and then it got to be where you didn't need to give treats, because it was the interaction. But there'd be some times when she'd say, I'm not in the mood today, and you have to think, oh, okay. Whereas you would go, well, if I give you a bigger treat, would you be in the mood? But I used to say, no, that's fine, because she's not in the mood. Because if I gave her a bit extra, it would be taken, but it's like, I'm not in the mood, and I'll take it. All right, okay. So she'd be a little bit more assertive. So for me, that was okay. That we'll stop there.
Yeah, good.
But it's when you try things. So you started with the rope, and like you said, you found out that actually that wasn't the connection that you wanted. But by doing that and seeing as you developed into what you thought you wanted, which is what you're doing now, you saw the difference. And there's a lot of learning in those gaps. Am I making sense when I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's about learning. And
Mm.
for some things as well, it's about learning what you don't want to do. I've been incredibly blessed to train with some of the best Liberty trainers in the world, and I've loved every second with all of them. Most parts I think, oh yeah, I can use that. Other parts I think that's not for me, and that's okay. And what I say to my students is, don't follow my way like a dogma. Use what works for you. So basically go around, get as many ingredients as you can from as many people as you can, and then make your own cake with your own flavors and make it your own. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I like that analogy, cake. I've got a
Yeah,
soft spot for cake.
me too.
Yeah, it's funny because I was describing that about something else to somebody. It's you can have all the ingredients, but there may be one little bit missing, and that's the difference between a nice cake and a special cake.
Yeah, it's true.
Absolutely.
And that special ingredients, if we're referring it back to horses, that can come in unusual places. And the best teachers of all of them are the horses.
Mm.
If you sit and observe a horse, I say to my students, what does your horse like? Oh, he likes his food. Let's dig a bit deeper than that. Watch them in the field. What do they do? How do they move? Who do they prefer to be with? How often do they sleep? Really learn everything you can about the horse, because that's obviously how they like to do things. And then you can bring that into your training. Like if you see that your horse loves to rest and close his eyes a lot, use that in your training. Ask for your turn. Do what you want to do. Ask them to put a bit of effort in. And when you feel like they've made a really great effort, wonderful. Let's just stand still together and let them have a doze. And then they start to go, well, I don't mind that Ronnie's asking me to do stuff because I know I'll get my turn to have a little nap in a minute. I would love to revolutionize the way that lessons are done. An hour of just drilling and schooling, and I think so much is lost. I trained with Anna Marciniak in Poland, who's a fantastic trainer, and she'd do like between 4 minutes to 6 minute increments, and that was it, and take a break. And that's how my horses, when I was in Costa Rica, I had some phenomenal bridleless horses, and people were like, yeah, but you must spend hours training them. It's like, absolutely not. 5 to 10 minutes a day maximum. I'm too busy. I don't have time to do hours and hours. And they would retain it. Whereas I see people that are drilling them a lot, and the connection breaks. It's too much.
Yeah, that sounds Yeah, that sounded really fascinating. I was going to ask you a question then, and I was too busy listening. It just went straight out of my head. So you was in Costa Rica for 8 years.
18.
18 years, sorry. And then you came back. I read that, but you came back for COVID. So you're based in the UK now.
In Cornwall, yeah.
Yeah.
But most of my students, I have a lot of students here in England, but a lot are in America, Australia, New Zealand, because I have an online course. So that's where a lot of my students are now. I was teaching clinics before COVID, but I don't really want to go back to the clinic setting. I find that the horses are quite stressed when they come because it's a new place and they have new friends everywhere, and the students are anxious because there's people watching. And so I much prefer to kind of work with people online, and it's super successful. People make really, really great changes with their horses. Yeah.
So if somebody's interested in joining your online courses, how does that work? How does they go to your website? So how does it start?
Yeah, so basically it's a 4-module course with like 10 lessons in each module, loads of extras, like you get the film, an extra program of me starting with a new horse. And it's the full start to finish of how to create pure liberty with your horse and a friendship. including, them following you at liberty, stopping together, backing up together, all of those things, leading ultimately to bridleless riding, although I don't teach bridleless riding in that course. And then you can submit videos. You have endless access to me to ask questions. And then we're starting to have a once a month student sort of webinar where everyone can ask questions. There's tons of information in it. Yeah, it's great. I'm really proud of that course.
So the free, so you have, I saw on your website, you've got the liberty, connection, and the freedom and the mindset. So do you want to talk a little bit more about the mindset?
Well, the mindset just comes down to us, doesn't it? If you see your horse as a servant, it's going to be very hard for you to look at yourself and go, who do I need to be for this horse to connect with me? It would only be, this horse needs to connect with me. He's the one that needs to make the changes. Okay, so I think it's about learning to slow down enough to realize that horses aren't a piece of sporting equipment. They are incredibly intelligent, incredibly sensitive, cognitive learners. And the more we do for our horses in the way that we control them, we tell them where to put their feet, where to put their head, where to put their body, they just stop learning. They just go into learned helplessness and they shut down. So it's about slowing down enough to let that horse have an opinion, to allow them to say no. And you go, I wonder why they said no. Is there a way that I could maybe change my body language, ask in a more subtle way, ask in a clearer way? Because you know what? Honestly, horses want to say yes. They do. They want to work with us. It makes their life easier and they actually enjoy it. It depends how we ask. So it's about focusing on a liberty mindset. Even if you have them in a halter or you're riding them with reins, act as if you're not. How can I be so clear in my body that this equipment isn't needed? How can I use my focus and intention enough that this horse already knows what I want? How many times have you, I don't know how experienced you are in riding, but how many times have you been thinking, I'm going to canter, and boom, that horse canters. Or I'm going to stop, and the horse stops. You can get it on a thought basis, absolutely 100% backed up with body language, then equipment if you need it. But because we have equipment, we tend to overuse it and the horse doesn't get to think. They don't get to feel a connection with you because you're not even exploring that. You're just using your tools to control. So it's about changing that mindset of like, my tools are here for safety and communication if needed. Tools being reins, tools being, ropes, halters. Doesn't mean that you don't use them, but use everything else first. Your connection, your balance, your body language, your clarity, your focus. And you might find you don't need to use those tools half as much as you thought you did. I have students sometimes when I was teaching clinics would come in and I'd help them and guide them, and they would just achieve the most beautiful liberty. Their horses following them around obstacles with no treats, no sticks, no ropes. Beautiful, blowing out to stop, and the horse would stop perfectly beside them. Then they'd put their halter on to leave for safety. They're going out across the yard and they're either dragging the horse or the horse is dragging them to the grass and eating. And I'm like, you were just flowing around at liberty when you had no equipment, and now you've got it and you're not even on the same page. So it's that mindset.
I had to laugh when you said about riding. I very rarely, I could count on two sets of hands how many times I've ridden my horse, and she's 20 and I've had her since she was 4. So that's why interacting with it in other ways was really important for me.
Nice.
So the riding side is like, wow, if I, when I do that, it's like I won the lottery. In fact, just sitting on my horse is like winning the lottery.
It's a gift, isn't it? If they grant it, it's a gift. If we take it loses some of its sweetness.
Yeah, it is. It's very different. Can I share a story with you? I don't know why I'm sharing this, but I'm going to share it with you. It was quite a few years ago. So I'd lost So I'd come off my horse, but it wasn't her fault. It's a long story, but when I got her, I thought she was more schooled than she actually was. And I was just excited that I got a horse, and I just wanted to put the saddle on and go. And that taught me a big lesson. But I did ride her. But then I stopped riding her because something else happened, and I thought, well, she was diagnosed with something, and I thought, right, I don't know enough about it, so I'm not going to ride her. But on hindsight, if I'd kept riding it, would have been better for to keep her going. But I'm digressing now. So a friend of mine said, "Why don't you come and ride a pony that she had?" And she looked after this pony. She says, "Come and have a ride. She's lovely. You'll just." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know if my legs go to jelly just thinking about it." And anyway, she says, "Come on, let's go for a little ride. We'll just go for a walk out." And she's a dear friend, and I knew she'd look after me. And so we went for a ride, and I got on this pony, and I just thanked her because I said, "Thank you so much for allowing me on your back." And because I said, "Thank you so much." And we just went for a walk, and it was lovely. Went for just a nice walk out, and it was just bliss. It was just bliss. And I was just sending her heart vibes and saying, "Thank you. This means the world to me." You've no idea. Oh yes, she did. But she shared something with me. So I was asking if she's okay and if she's comfortable. And she said, I'm quite happy to carry you, and that's fine because I know what that means to you. And she didn't say them in these words because that's not how they communicate with me, but that's the essence of it. But she says, "But my saddle is not right, and I do need something addressing." So when we got back from the ride, my friend knows me, so she knows what I do. And I said, "I've really enjoyed that. That was such a treat, but I wouldn't get on this horse again after what she just told me." And so I said, "Is there any way you can let the owners know?" And she says, "Well, it's a bit difficult, you know." So I said, "Well, she's said she needs something addressing because the saddle's not right, or she's not right, but it's not right." And so we left it at that. And I think it was probably the week after. The pony was owned by a long-term, a pony was owned by her carer who was at uni. She came back to ride her, and she'd had her most of her life. And I think it was a few days I'd come back to my friends, and she says, "Oh my goodness," she says, "the horse that you rode," she said, her owner came back from uni and went for a ride and came back, and she booked her off. And she said, she told her she's not comfortable. So she said, then I mentioned the conversation. So yeah, that's that. I don't know why I've shared that story with you, but it seemed relevant.
No, I mean, it's great. And yeah, horses do communicate. I think everyone can have the ability to hear them. I think we've forgotten how to do it, a lot of people. I get messages, which it's great. I don't get them from every horse. But I've learned to trust what I do receive. And especially with my own horses, if you have a good relationship with them, you can have a conversation with them whether they're there or not if you're away. I can remember one time I was in America teaching, and my horses were in Costa Rica, and I was in the back of a car, and it was a really long car journey, and I thought, I'm going to see if I can tune in with Coco. So I just thought of her and brought her to my mind's eye. And then I suddenly got the most stabbing pain in my thigh. And I thought, that's really weird. And I was like, have you hurt your leg? Are you hurt? Thinking I've gone insane, but I'm going to just go with this anyway. And I got an instant message back that, yes, I've hurt my leg. So I phoned up my friend in Costa Rica. I said, what has Coco done to her leg? And she went, who told you? I told people not to tell you. I was like, no, Coco told me. And she'd injured her leg. So I've learned not to doubt it. And I say to everyone, ask your horse the question and trust the answer that comes into your head immediately. And oftentimes it will be, transferred, well, for me anyway, into words that I wouldn't normally use. And I think anyone can do it.
Oh, absolutely. It's there. We can all do it, but I think when it's our own horses, people, which is understandable, so much about your own horses that you dismiss a lot of things that they're relaying to you, and
Make
it
assumptions.
comes. Yes, yeah, and it comes in many forms. It comes in pictures. It comes in words. It comes in just feelings, as you did, or a mixture of all different ways. But or just a knowing, that you're connecting. But yeah, so
In the book, I talk about all that is, and obviously in the book, one chapter is me telling my story, how it was for me on the trek, and the next chapter is Zeus, my horse partner. It was his voice telling his part of the story, and the communication is there. And we talk about in the book all that is, which is, Mother Nature, universal energy, some might call it God, whatever you want to call it. Animals have a way of communicating with each other. I see interspecies communication all the time. And it's not just body language. I'll see a fox go across the field and there'll be an interaction between them and the horse. And because we don't understand it, we'll just dismiss it. Oh, they're just looking at each other. It's not. There's something going on. That's what all that is it has a way that universally we can communicate with other species. We've just blocked it out with all of our mental chatter, our busyness, our noise, the internet. We're so focused on here instead of here that we've lost that sort of conversion way of looking at energy, and it's there. And I think everyone can relate to times when they've been out in nature somewhere, far away from all the busyness of life, and they feel different. They feel more connected to the earth. They feel more grounded. And that's when it starts to flow. The communication abilities start to flow. And then we step back into normal life, and packed lunches need to be made, and jobs need to be done, and kids need to be sorted out. And, it's understandable that we then lose that ability. But if we can find that time to connect back with nature, there's so much more there. It's incredible.
Absolutely. It's like, I describe it as like radio signals. They're there. They're always floating around,
Always.
and they're just looking for somewhere to land sometimes, especially if it's somebody that wants help. And as soon as they know there's a connection, they will go to that, and then it's up to you to what you do with it. But it's so therapeutic, just being out in nature, just being quiet and just being still. It's just so therapeutic. It's so rewarding.
It's healing.
Yes, it is very, very healing. And I think that's what horses, they give us the opportunity to discover that.
Yeah.
They give us the opportunity, if we can see that actually
if we
you're
can
doing
see it
things.
and hear it.
Yeah. Because you can have a horse and you can visit your horse 2, 3, 4 times a day. You can do the normal things. You can do all of those things, but they know the difference between that and just being in their energy, being in their presence for no reason. And that's really powerful.
Yeah, and you just touched on it. It's being in their presence, but it's also being present.
Yeah.
People say to me, oh, but I just don't have time. It's like, even if you can only spend 2 minutes with your horse, just be present for those 2 minutes, and it will mean more to them than you being there chatting with your mates or on your phone or being completely disconnected from the horse for an hour. Just make the time that you have with them count. And, people say, oh, it's difficult because I'm in a livery yard or whatever. It's like, just explain to people, listen, I'm not being funny and I'm not being rude. We'll catch up for a cup of tea in the tap room later. But when I'm with my horse, I'm with my horse. Because it's a bit like when you're with people and you're on your cell phone, whatever, it is rude. And it's the same when you're with your horse. It's just give them the dignity and the honor of being present when you're in their company. And they will start to give you more than you can ever imagine. Once they know you're present and that you're connected with them. And I think the word connected is overused in the horse industry, to be honest, but it's a friendship. People go, I don't want my horse to be my friend. I want him to jump for me or whatever. It's like, if I'm jumping over a fence, I want that horse to be my friend. I want him to be my friend because then he'll look after me and I'll look after him. And like I said before, they want to say yes, but don't take it from them. Give them the dignity of being a partner to them where you'll listen, put your point of view across and ask in a way that they can easily say yes, rather than having to fight them and force it and take it.
And the similar as people, sometimes you'll get a person that's a morning person or an afternoon or evening, and depending on your routine, horses are the same. If, like you said earlier, I think if it's their rest time, or they like to slow down and do something, I'd usually say go and sit with them if you can, or
Sure.
nighttime. I was talking to somebody the other day that winter time is a great time, because if your horses, say they come into the stable or that they're in the field and you're going down in the evening and you don't have to rush home, you can just sit with a flask of tea and just sit with them and just listen to them munching on the hay, because that is such a lovely sound, and you can hear them, and if they're chewing softly and then they start to breathe,
Best
and then you
sound in
can
the world.
see, you can see your breath is slowing down and theirs slows down, and then you close your eyes and then you can hear a as they blow out, and then you do the same. It's
It's heart
just so nice.
coherence. I mean, it's been
Yes.
scientifically proven that our hearts come into coherence with horses and vice versa. And I always say, that question of who do I need to be? You need to be a person who's the horse feels he can converge with.
Yeah.
It's like a metronome effect. It would all come into sync.
Yeah. And not beat yourself up when you make mistakes, because we all do, and we all have
Always.
things that go on in our life. Get cross, but get over it. Get cross,
Yeah, and just say
get over it.
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I messed up. I mess up all the time. I mess up all the time. I'm beautifully human. We're all going to make mistakes. We're not horses. And horses make mistakes too. But we don't, when I say we're not horses, it means, we can't know what they're thinking all the time and do the right thing all the time. But the one thing we can do is keep anger out of the equation. Anger has no place with horses. That said, we're all going to do it at some point where it's just something presses that button. And when that happens, you just immediately recognize it, let it go, and go and say sorry. And they will not hold it against you.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited because I haven't read your book yet, but I'm definitely going to get it and have a read, because the extract that I read was like, okay, I need to speak to this lady, because that was a bit that sort of that stuck out. So in your travel, what's the main thing? There'll be lots of things that you've learned. What is the main thing that you that's really stuck with you, that you, when you recall that, you think, wow, what's the thing that you remember from that adventure?
Slowing down enough that I could see what was right in front of my face, which was a horse who wanted me to connect with him, who wanted me to see the world through his eyes, who wanted to share so much with me. And when I got past the need to control everything, set the pace, set the direction, set where he was standing, stay by my shoulder, when I just got over all of that, being so aware of this incredible animal that was willing to share his life with me, and it was incredibly humbling. And also, I think the thing for me was learning how we just don't move enough with our horses. They would have walked forever. We awoke something in them that was so in their DNA to move, and we were doing sort of 18 to 20 miles a day. and they just came alive. They came alive, and it was their purpose, and they just wanted to keep walking. And when it was over, it was really hard on them. It was really hard on them. And when they came back, they came into about 90 acres of rainforest, rivers, pastures. It was the most idyllic place for horses, and they walked the fence line.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it was
That's
it was
tugging at
hard.
my heart.
Yeah, it was hard. But then I think about horses that are in, a tiny field, monocrop, no features, no nothing, and they're just shutting down. And I say to people all the time, take your horses for walks. Just get out and hike with them. They love it. And at first they might not. At first they might be scared of their own shadow, but you will awaken something in them, and they will be so happy to walk with you. And they love it. And when you're on the ground with them, it's great because you can look where they're looking, you can touch things that they want to touch, and really experience the walk together. And it's incredibly bonding, and you put so much in the emotional bank that then if you do ride and you get on and you want to ask for piaf or whatever it is that you're doing, they're like, sure, I'll do that with you, because you do things for them. Horses are born to move, and they love it.
That's in their DNA, isn't it? That's how they're from. Yeah, that's how they
Absolutely.
survive.
Yeah.
There's a lot more people that want to do trekking and do trekking. There's a lot more
Yeah.
a lot of more communities that actually want to just go off doing trail riding, but actually not riding, and or
Yeah.
a bit of both, which I think is lovely. And that's something there's a little seed there that I'm
Sure.
interested
No, it's
in.
amazing. It's so fun. Yeah, it's definitely starting a lot of people wanting to do it.
Yeah, but I think, and also because it's about learning about yourself. And I think when you're doing that way, you've got time to think, because you're not sat on the horse and you're thinking, you're with them. Like you said, you can feel the movement, and you can, if they're looking away, you can look somewhere where they're looking, or you're experiencing it different to riding. There is a different feel with that.
Definitely. But it can translate up into the saddle as well. Once you do a lot on the ground with them, you'll be so much more aware when you do, or if you ride them. Yeah.
So is there anything in the pipeline that you'd like to talk about? Anything coming up?
What have we got coming up? Well, the book has been launched, but there's a big launch for it in December because the publishers are in America. So that's exciting. We also have our podcast starting, myself and Callie King. We're starting with our podcast in November. I know, I'm excited about that. And that's going to be about a lot of things, not just horses, but travel and outlook on life and that sort of thing. We have a big event. Callie and myself are doing a Reconnect with Your Horse event in America in May. So that's exciting. And then I'm going to be starting my next book. So lots going on. Lots and lots.
Wow. You're going to be a very busy lady. What's your next book about? Or is it a secret?
No, not really. I worked with dog rescue in Costa Rica a lot. So it's going to be woven around that.
Yeah. Exciting. Oh.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm
Always
so
busy.
Yeah. But but busy, nice busy, because it's it's your passion, it's what you want to do.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I wish you all the best with your book, Crossing Bridges, but I don't think you'll need it. It's been lovely chatting with you. I do feel we've just scratched the surface. It would be nice to maybe with you and Callie once you've.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be
love
nice
to do that. And maybe when you read the book, and if you have any more questions, we'll jump back on together for sure.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Thank you for agreeing to come and chat with me, Andrea. It's been an insight into your amazing journey, your life with horses.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
And so if you'd just like to, because I know you're on a time frame tonight, that's why I'm just conscious of the time. So if you'd like to say bye, And any parting message, and then I'll pop you out. And
Yeah.
if you don't mind just waiting, and then I'll chat to you afterwards.
Sure. Well, thank you everyone for listening. I've really, really enjoyed it. And if I could leave you with one thing, it would be look at the world through the eyes of your horse.
Thank you. That's perfect. Oh, what an amazing lady! What an amazing lady! Yeah, we definitely scratched the surface. I had more questions in my head, but I thought actually we're short on time, so we'll save that for another time. I hope you enjoyed that too. My guests come on and they give their own time and their own experience through life, and they share their stories, and I find that fascinating. It's nice to interact with different people from all walks of life. Have a lovely evening, and thank you again for joining. And I shall see you soon. Take care and bye for now.